Drivers, start your engines!
Hit the pace car! What for? Because you hit every other damn thing out there, I want you to be perfect!
When I'm driving, I got a guy on the radio who talks to me. It's him, but he talks to me.
Well, I wanna be a race car driver, pretty girls eating from my hand, yeah. Wanna live a life of fun and danger, no sweating working for the man, alright.
Hey, race fans, welcome to the Hoobazoo Radio Network and welcome to the Draft from the Circus program, brought to you by Dan Blay Racing Art and by FirstSuperspeedway.com. My name is Frank Santoroski. I'll be your host for the next hour as we go over this week in racing, preview next week, and talk about a myriad of other topics. Joining me in the studio, I have Luis Torres, Richard Youden, and Christopher DeHarde. Fellas, how we doing, man?
Good, thank you.
Going good.
No complaints. Looking forward to Long Beach.
All right, man. Looking forward to Long Beach. And a little later in our program, we'll get into a nice preview of Long Beach, one of the, I believe it is the longest continuously running street race in North America. Or not. We missed a year, didn't we?
Yeah, 2020.
We don't like to talk about 2020.
Yeah,
so
me neither.
Yeah, that's okay.
but anyway, NASCAR was in Richmond, and we've been talking about the struggles Toyota has been having, but they come out of Richmond with the win. Denny Hamlin, another guy who's been struggling a bit lately, having a tough year. So at the end of the day, despite the fact that we saw some really good runs by guys like Ross Chastain, who has been kind of pretty good everywhere this year, it was Denny Hamlin and Kevin Harvick coming to the forefront at the end of the race there. So, Louise, what were your impressions of racing on the the little bullring there in Richmond?
I know I can understand why people didn't enjoy it as much because but the different, like, there wasn't much passing or going on. But I look at it this way. Wasn't back in the day about long run strategy and making the car count when it matters most? Because when I saw the tail end of the race, William Byron, Martin Truex Jr. looked like they were going to put on a fantastic battle between themselves. Then Harvick and Hamlin and Kyle Larson for a cup of coffee showed up and they hunted him down with Hamlin getting an amazing run on the backstretch. It seems like, what is going on with Byron? He has regressed badly, and lo and behold, it kind of shows experience versus relative inexperience, with Hamlin being the most one of the more experienced drivers on the grid today, to Byron, who's only been competitive for a couple of years now. It just shows you that don't wait till the race is over. It'll be worth it, because there were long green flag runs. And people on social media saying, we need long green flag runs. We need pit stop strategies to come in the foray again. And we saw that this weekend. Like Truex and Christopher Bell were among those that stood out trying the strategy, like short pitting or waiting a bit, and then it helped them out. Obviously, they didn't win. For Hamlin, first top 10 all season long. It kind of shows you how frustrating it's been for Hamlin, and showed a lot of emotion to the point he climbed on top of his roof, which people threw a hissy fit over. But hey, you got to give credit to Hamlin. It's been a tough year, and now he doesn't have to worry about, for now. I still don't think we're going to see more than 16 winners, though. But for now, he's in.
Yeah, so people threw a hissy fit because he stood on the hood of his car?
No, the roof. Because apparently, Chase Elliott destroyed a roof in Martinsville.
Yeah, I was going to say, don't people generally get on the roof of the car? I see that a lot in NASCAR. Is this suddenly a bad thing?
Somebody brought it up.
Something?
Somebody brought it up to Bob, and Bob had to say that NASCAR tend to let them have their moment unless it becomes a common problem. I mean, I look back to the 2004 Brickyard 400 that NASCAR got so mad at Gordon. NASCAR in Indianapolis got so mad at Gordon for celebrating it at the yard of bricks instead of bringing it to victory lane. It's like, you cannot stop raw emotion in those circumstances.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let him have his moment. Yeah, people can hate on the post-race, immediate victory lane interview, all that stuff. I know it's a chagrin to the photographers when you have those Fox and NBC crew interfere with an amazing shot in the works. Get the attention is to capture them in a true emotional form. like you see at a local short track. Like where Tanner Reef, when he won in Irwindale, he climbed the fence and do all that stuff. It's stuff like that. You just let them have their moment, man. Just let them have their moment. The Victory Lane interview after the burn, I said, "Oh, that's a whole different story." But when it comes to emotions, let them have their moment. Let them have their moment. It was just finding ways to complain at this point for the littlest things.
Exactly. Well, I mean, if race fans didn't complain, something, I would think something was wrong in the world. But yeah, but at the end of the day, man, good run for Hamlin. Some folks are starting to feel that he's barely relevant anymore, and we're only a couple seasons removed from him, having a pretty dominant season, winning the most races. So here he is back in victory lane, spotting the chase for now, like you say. Or the playoffs, rather. We don't use the term chase anymore, unless we're talking about Chase Elliott. But I was again, and I had alluded to this a little earlier. Another great run for Trackhouse Racing. I mean, it's amazing, just what some new leadership and new ownership in there has done to that team. It's really rejuvenated because, the Ganassi team, they weren't terrible. They had their share of wins here and there, but, Ross seems to be in the mix more often than not, week in and week out.
Yeah, absolutely. Sure, it wasn't. He had a strong run for most of the race, or the result may not fully reflect on it, but he's been a contender at each and every race so far. And as you mentioned with Ganassi, they only had a couple of seasons like 01, 02, then 2009 and 2017 to name a couple of them where they were legitimate title contenders. But with Justin Marks and Ty Norris, I think they got the right people with experience. And it did help to get that Pitbull money for sure. But that was the team that kind of had like the brains and all that. And people have been talking about Justin Marks having the understanding the sport, the ins and out of it, that people said someday he'll be an excellent owner, and look where he is right now, to the point that we can easily say the one car could be a title contender. But we'll see about that.
Certainly, yeah. I mean, it's a long season ahead, yeah, but he's he's already notched him up a win. He's right up there in the points, so there's no reason to say that he won't perform when we get to the playoffs. But yeah, but to Justin Marks, I mean, congratulations to that guy, man. He had a dream. He set his sights on it. And of course, when we talk about taking over the Ganassi team, it's really, most of what he's picked up is just equipment in a building, so those are a lot of the folks employed there are people that Justin has, selected and found. And again, for a race team to be successful, you have to have the right mix of people. And I just really like what, Justin is doing. I like to see, new team owners coming into a series. That's why I've been pretty happy with Michael Shank and his measured approach to getting into the IndyCar series and those sort of things. Because we see too many of these, people with the big dreams that come in and they fizzle out and they're gone in a moment,
Yeah, we can name like for NASCAR or IndyCar, look at Carlin, successful junior program. They're not even around now. They're just kind of like a small road with Juncos, to my knowledge.
Yeah, pretty much they've sold their equipment to Juncos. And Juncos is another one that, has been in and out of IndyCar trying to make it happen. But again, Ricardo Juncos, a brilliant man, right? Surround himself with the right people. But when it came time to take that step, out of the junior series and into the top series, he, mind you, COVID derailed him a little bit, budgets derailed him a little bit, but it's just a couple of years ago that they knocked Alonso out of the 500, but yet, here they are finally putting a car back on the grid. But you got these other teams that have just kind of just disappeared, like Ben Hanley and Dragon Speed, right? What happened to them, right?
Yeah, or even you also had the 77 program that I can't remember the name at the top of my head, that Serbia drove a couple years ago in the 500, and now they want to invest on a NASCAR team with Tarso Marquez.
Yeah. So, but let's not get too deep into IndyCar yet, because we've got IndyCar segment coming up. But let's touch on the Xfinity race where Ty Gibbs was victorious once again. Ty Gibbs is, how old is he? 18, 17?
He's 18 because if he was 70, he would not be running full-time Xfinity.
Yeah, because he looks like he's 12, but
he looks like Dash Incredible.
But gosh, the kid can drive. But little controversy there towards the end of the race with John Hunter Nemechek.
Yeah, basically door slammed him going in turn 3 on the last lap of the race. I mean, it's not the worst thing out there. I mean, we saw Johnny Sauter and Matt Kenseth where they hooked bumpers to, I think it was Sauter hooked Kenseth out of the way, shoved them out of the way, dropped them from the lead to like 6th or 7th on the final turn to win the 03 Busch race at Richmond. So it's nothing new, but I can understand. I think it boils down to not many people like Gibbs' driving style or personality, on top of the fact that John Hunter has been a guy that typically will run you fine, except for Mosport and Cole Custer, unless your name is Cole Custer and Mosport many years ago. But it was just a hard-fought battle. It's not the first time we see Gibbs cars do something like that before. I mean, Carl Edwards and Kyle Busch in 2016. Anyone? I get it. It's one thing moving them bumper, and another thing is just door slamming. Why not even trying to move them out of the way, do the old bump and run chrome horn ordeal? But
yeah, but it seems like this has been like a hot topic in NASCAR, especially coming out of the Circuit of the Americas race, where we saw Ross Chastain kind of just stake his ground right there after he got past. He just kind of moved the guys out of the way, and a couple of guys that, like Denny Hamlin, have been a little vocal about how it is what it is. You're fighting for the win, but they're just not pleased with it. It's it's almost like Denny Hamlin, who's he's been known to take a guy out or two. Ask Chase Elliott, but
Jeff Gordon at an All-Star race.
Race, yes. I mean, Denny's no angel, but like Denny's talking like he's thinking about some 1930s, 40s racing is a gentlemanly sport. You know what I mean? It's not. There's a lot on the line, especially when win and you're in when it comes to the playoffs. So
yeah, for John Hunter Nemechek to maybe get back to the Xfinity series someday.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
because if he's with JGR, he'd be a title contender by far. But right now he's eyeing for a Truck Series championship for KBM, which is the top ride in the Truck Series, one of the top rides in the Truck Series. So it works out, but a win comes a long way because when the inevitable happens when Ty Gibbs goes to Cup, maybe that ride could go to John Hunter. Who knows? It's just and this also adds for John Hunter a boil of frustration with what happened not that long ago. I think it was with Atlanta with Chandler Smith, another teammate, kind of in his eye screwed him over out of a win. So it's kind of like frustration keeps boiling, and it's just hoping for John Hunter's case. He's hoping just a breakthrough, and nothing happened to him where he can actually win a race and can move on and continue with the momentum.
Yeah. So where do you see Ty Gibbs next year? Do you think he's ready to move up to Cup next year?
It boils down to
what I mean.
It boils down to Truex, honestly.
Hamlin is the other guy I think that may move out of the picture
and go
being that he's got an
car or replace Kirk.
Or just sit on a pit wall. I kind of look at the Austin Cindric situation there, right? They were ready to go ahead and farm Austin Cindric out to the Wood brothers until Brad Keselowski made his intent known to go ahead and buy on into the Roush team, which opened up the door for Cindric to hop in the top Cup ride rather than the mid-tier Cup ride. And I don't know that personally that Ty Gibbs is going to be ready for Cup next year.
I don't think so.
But then again, you see these guys are coming out younger and younger, and they're just impressive, and you think of young guys like Colton Herta, who was pretty strong right out of the box at 18 years old. So yeah, you wonder. It used to be you had to put your time in, a couple seasons in the trucks, couple seasons in Xfinity, and then maybe you'd be ready for a Cup ride, maybe a couple of Cup starts here and there. But I've just seen a lot of these young guys that are just kind of pushed through. I mean, look at Harrison Burton right now in a Cup ride. I wouldn't have thought he'd be ready for that yet, but yet and there he is.
Yeah, and for Harrison Burton finishing in the top 20 with a clean car for the first time all year. I got to emphasize this, all year. It's good for him. Good for him because he has damaged every single car. Most of them, none of his own do. He just bad luck of circumstances. Each and every single race week, he's had a damaged car. Fortunately, he had a clean car, which is key for them because when you end up with damaging a lot of cars, especially with the 7th gen car, the current one, and with the inventory, you got to be careful. Even own doing or not, it's just something you don't want to think about or like worried about how much cars you have in your inventory. Whether if you were a Penske affiliate or not, you don't want to have damaged cars on a regular because that will sidetrack you big time. So for Harrison to get out of Richmond with a top 20 is ideal.
It won't make your shop mechanics very happy with you unless they like the overtime every week. But yeah, so but anyway, I just kind of ponder what Ty Gibbs' future is, and I know we'll see him in a Cup car with the Gibbs team.
Yeah, it won't be till 2024, in my opinion. It won't be till 24 unless Truex or Hamlin, maybe Kyle Busch, depending on if he. I imagine he won't have any sponsorship problems. I know Mars M&Ms are going to leave at the end of the year, so that's a big question mark. Indeed, as far as who will step up to the 18 team and sponsor those races that M&Ms have been doing for the last plus decade run. But another noteworthy mention as far as Xfinity is Parker Retzlaff, the former ARCA East driver, current NASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing driver for RFK Racing. Speaking of Keselowski, he had a superb showing in the Ryan Seat car. He qualified in the top 10 once again. It's his second series start, no less. If it wasn't for bad pit stops, which apparently that team is just kind of like volunteers almost, or they're not fully trained enough to get solid pit stops because Sieg's entries are mostly part-time or not that long ago, like half a decade ago, some of them were starting park rides. But for him to be able to recover just fine, especially from an uncontrolled tire penalty to get in the top 10, beating a couple JRM cars too, superb run. It makes me wonder had it not been for those slow stops and the tire penalty, Retzlaff could have probably finished in the top 5 for all we know. He certainly wowed some people, especially considering he's had not much actual stock car experience aside from ARCA East for a couple years. So that's a kudos to Parker and that whole camp. He'll be running Martinsville this weekend as well.
Right. So now, Richard, you've been quiet over there. So I want to get your impressions as a guy who's, worked on these NASCAR chassis and whatnot. So we've begun the kind of, I guess, the short track swing of the season here. We got Richmond, Martinsville coming up, Bristol not too far off, albeit on dirt. But what were your impressions of the Gen 7 car on the short track? I thought it was fantastic at COTA. I thought it was a fantastic car. But how do you feel like it performed at the at Richmond?
I think the car performed well. But I don't think it may, necessarily give a good race, unfortunately. I think we've certainly seen up to every race we've had up till now, it's been pretty entertaining racing. But whether it is Richmond or it's maybe the configuration on the short track for this car, it just didn't have that. I don't want to say the cars were too easy to drive, but how many did we see spin out on their own accord during the race? One or two, maybe at most. It was pretty limited. But the definition of was the car good or did it produce good racing? I think the fact that there was a lot of green flags meant that the car was very good because the drivers could drive it and they could push the tires reasonably hard and you didn't have a huge amount of drop off and you didn't have the back end stepping out and hitting the wall and all that sort of stuff. So I think the car performed very, very well, but did it necessarily produce good racing? I think we need to see some more short track races before to really draw a conclusion for that. And as you say, we've got Martinsville coming up this weekend, and then see where we go from there. But I think the car this car continues to impress week in, week out, and I know there's some certain detractors and the like because it's new and it's got a single lug nut and blah blah blah, all this other stuff. But I think it served its purpose, and what you got to remember is the benefit of this car isn't going to be seen in this year or next. It's going to be seen in 3-4 years time when the cost savings really come to fruition. The initial settlement expense for the teams to buy all these chassis and buy all these parts was pretty high, but in theory you can build one of these cars with 2 people and a box of parts, which we've never been able to do in the past. So give it 2 or 3 years, and I think it'll really, really start to shine.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, so one of the knocks on the car, or one of the, whether it was a knock on the car or a plus for the car, was that it was supposed to be kind of difficult to drive. You know what I mean? But it seemed like everyone had a pretty good handle on it there at Richmond. So it really wasn't difficult to drive. But we're enough races in, the guys are just more comfortable with it.
Yeah, I think they learn. I mean, goodness me, 2 weeks ago, Denny Hamlin was breaking every transmission he set his eyes on. Now he won a race where they were shifting. So, they learn. These guys are pretty damn good at what they do, and they get themselves some simulated time and get some time in these rigs, and they'll pick it up pretty damn quickly. So, there's a lot to these teams, especially the top teams. They'll find a way, and for everybody's been saying how Toyota have struggled through the first half dozen races or whatever we've been to now, and then they go and win one. So they can't be struggling that much. So they'll get there, and I think it'll be pretty much back to a status quo by the end of the season.
All right. So speaking of what we get to, before we move on and start talking about the Long Beach Grand Prix coming up and the Australian Grand Prix coming up and the Indy 500 coming up, let's talk about Martinsville coming up. We've got a night race. Race at Martinsville. It's a 400 rather than 500, and that's laps, not miles. Martinsville being just a tick over a half mile. So who do you like for Martinsville? Because Martinsville is very, it's one of the more unique tracks on the circuit, where it is certainly a short oval, but it does not drive in the same fashion that a Richmond or a Bristol does. And
it's very flat.
It's kind of closer to it kind of drives a little closer to a road course.
Yeah, two road course, isn't it? Yeah.
Two hairpins and 2 straights. Yeah.
Yeah. A bit like the old track in Germany. But anyway, let's think. Who would we like this weekend? I mean, let's go with Tyler Reddick. He's been there or thereabouts, week in, week out, and
Tyler Reddick has been good every week. Yeah, that's a good pick. I like it.
Former colleagues at RCR, they're saying they're pushing so hard to get that kid his first win, and he deserves it. He's really stepped up. We've all known for the last 2 or 3 years since he won those back-to-back Xfinity championships that the kid's the real deal, and he just needs to connect all the dots during the race, and really have a good weekend and get the job done. I think it'd be great for him if he does that. So let's go for Tyler Reddick. Why not?
All right, Tyler Reddick sounds good. Louise, who do you like?
I'm gonna go somebody else outside of Hendrick for a change. Let's go with. I think you can never count out Truex. I know I went with him last week. He did me good, but I'm going to stick with Truex this week. I think he'll break through and get another short track win, which is still weird to say after like half a decade ago. We were wondering, will he ever win on a short track? Because I still feel like Blaney could be another contender, but I feel like he'll dominate and not win. That's been the quota of his career. Lead 100 laps, he ain't going to win.
Oh, man.
And that happened again this Sunday.
Yeah, it did.
He led
Blaney-
every
Blaney-
single lap in stage 1, and then pit
Blaney
stops
was darn
after.
good on Sunday. Yeah. So, golly, you just jinxed the man. So now, Christopher, you've been quiet over there. So let me allow you to make a pick for Martinsville before I throw my pick in the hat, and then we'll let you kind of guide us through what we can expect at Long Beach.
So this particular driver almost got his first win at Martinsville. I'm going to pick someone who hasn't won in almost a full calendar year. I think Chase Elliott's due for a win.
Okay, well, you kind of just stole my pick.
He's certainly due for a win. You can't deny that.
I was gonna go with Chase. So let me see who y'all left me. Honestly, it's tough to tell because we haven't been on a track like Martinsville yet. If it was a super speedway, I'd go with the Fords. If it was, but honestly, I'm thinking maybe Joey Logano here for Martinsville. So maybe that'll go south for me. Maybe Joey will win one. Yeah, he's been in the mix, but he's not been really making a lot of noise this year too much. So let's see if maybe Joey's got one in him because Kenseth is nowhere to be found. So we should be good.
Speaking of Kenseth, he is a finalist for the Hall of Fame this year.
Yes, yeah, we can talk about a Hall of Fame a little later in the show, but what I want to talk about now is the Long Beach Grand Prix coming up. Here we are, Long Beach Grand Prix, the two closest we've had together since I want to say the very first two were kind of close together, the Formula 5000 race and the first Formula One race back in 74 and 75. Or 75 and 76, whatever. It's been a long time.
Maybe 75, 76.
I think so. Yeah, they were they were months apart, not a year apart. But yeah, so we last raced in Long Beach towards the end of last season. Now, Long Beach with everything post-COVID now, we hope is back to its traditional early spring date. We've got a couple of guys in there who have performed very well at Long Beach. You've got Will Power, who's won there twice. Rossi's won there twice. Colton Herta is your most recent winner there. Sato's got a win there. So Christopher, let's talk about Long Beach and what we might expect to see, coming into our third race of the 2022 season for the Indycars.
So Long Beach has, always had this April date, except for last year with COVID. I'm not going to lie. I actually kind of liked it being in September as the season finale because Long Beach has always been, one of the major races on the calendar. I mean, if you had to pick one race from each discipline, it's Long Beach for the street circuits. For the road courses, it's Road America. And for ovals, it's obviously Indy. But, I mean, as the season finale, it had a fun buzz about the event that you get a fun buzz about the event in spring with, the locals and everything. But when the championship is on the line, like it is in September, it was actually kind of cool to see with everybody being there. Now, being back in April, it's getting back to what is, for lack of a better term, normal. I just looked on the website again, actually a couple nights ago. There's actually going to be no, COVID protocols unless there's rising cases again. So we're looking more and more like 2019. Now, of course, you mentioned who we're looking at. Early this season, it's hard to go against Scott McLaughlin over at Team Penske. He won the first race of the year in St. Petersburg. He very nearly won the second race of the year over at Texas. And, when it's just a last lap, last turn kind of deal that stopped him from getting it. But still, he's really, really upped his game. And I'm looking forward to seeing what he does in Long Beach. Newgarden getting the win away from him. He's starting off the year a lot better than he did last year. Can't count him out either. I think doesn't he have? No, I don't think he has a win at Long Beach, but I think he's
No,
doing pretty well.
he had a
there.
strong run last September from the pole until Herda.
Yeah, he won the pole there last year. Yeah, but I mean, Newgarden's a guy you can't count out at nearly any track, especially when Penske is on. And Penske has had, 2 straight years of being off, and this year they're on.
Well, it's funny. Last year they couldn't win a race to save their lives. It wasn't until I think Mid-Ohio that they got their first win. And, they lost a lot of races just very close. And now here they are. They've won the first 2. I don't know what's caused them to turn everything around, but it's good to see because, they're a top team. That's where they should be. And that was a big storyline last year. But it's kind of weird because Rossi's had 2 wins there. Colton won there last year, but this year Andretti it's just been a mystery as to what's going on with them. Like Texas, 3 of the bottom 4 positions were filled with Andretti cars. Colton didn't necessarily fare too much better, having a pit stop issue, and he finished 12th, and he was the best Andretti car. I wish I knew what was going on because they have great drivers, they have great engineering staff there, as we've seen the last few seasons, but it's just weird, Yeah,
well, interesting enough, the Andretti tested today at Barber, along with it was supposed to be just Andretti and Ed Carpenter testing, but they had a couple of other teams join them based on the fact that they had to kind of call off the test at the road course at Indy. So Ganassi was down there as well as somebody else was down there. But all the top times were set by the Andretti guys at Barber, with Colton Herta being at the top and Grosjean being firmly in second in the testing earlier today. So, hopefully whatever kind of speed they found there at Barber, they could translate to Long Beach because, again, here's a guy – here's a guy who's looking at getting into Formula One, right? And you gotta wonder if his IndyCar team is struggling. Is it because Michael's focus isn't there? Because he's working on this whole Formula One deal, right? And Michael has obviously a lot of really good people that work for him. But if he's been a little disconnected, is this why we're having problems? And mind you, some of the problems are mechanical and just dumb luck in the snap. But my gosh, but look at Rossi. He's on every stupid thing happened to him in the last 2 years that you possibly could. So you got to wonder, is Michael disconnected, and is that part of the problem, or is it just unrelated kind of silliness, but somewhere the focus is lost, because this is the team with the potential to. that IndyCar put up a little stat the other day about on this day 2 days ago, Andretti cars finished 1, 2, 3, 4 at St. Pete back in 2005, and that's the first and only time that one single team has swept the top 4 positions in a race. So we're only decade and a half removed from that kind of domination, but it really seems like you got guys, teams like McLaren and even Carpenter, Rail to a smaller extent, just kind of breathing up their neck to be that number 3 team after Penske and Ganassi.
I think what you may be seeing here actually is a little bit of, as you mentioned, maybe a distraction there from Michael's side on his other business ventures. I mean, he does have a lot of fingers in a lot of pies, doesn't he? But also, I think maybe as the sport grows from a technology standpoint, are they keeping pace with that? And, maybe some of these smaller teams are investing more and more in some of these technologies, and it's just not, he just hasn't kept up for whatever reason, or he's not getting the support he needs from the engine supplier, and all that sort of, that sort of side of things. Because I'm sure the core people that they have are very, very good, but do they need to bring more people in to support their IndyCar project rather than bring people in to look into other motorsport activities?
Another thing I'd look at is just cohesiveness. Like, how well are everybody working together? Like, is there an issue there? I mean, I know you've got 4 teams, you've got 4, people trying to go for their driver. Is everybody working together as well as they should? I mean, in 2005, 2006, you had, or 2005, you had Dan there with Dario, you had TK, Marco was coming in 06. You had
Brian Herter was the other guy in 05, yeah.
Yeah, and you had a good group of people there that really worked well together, and it was all one big unit. That's why they were so well. Is there something going on there? You have to ask the question, because you've got the son of the race strategist, as one of the drivers, former Formula One driver as another. Well, actually 2 former Formula One drivers as another. And then you've got Devlin, who's got crap load of money that he's brought to the team. So is everyone pulling in the same way? Is everyone going in the same direction? And if not, then that has to get fixed immediately.
That's pretty much what I'm thinking of. Yeah. That's a good point.
The other thing, if you start to think about it, right, and look at Andretti's struggles, right, through the early aughts, they were pretty dominant. They won championships in 04, 05, 07. They won a slew of Indy 500s during that period and past. But you really, the first time they really struggled was during the manufacturer kit era. And they kind of chalked that up to the fact that the Andretti team was burdened with the responsibility of testing the Honda Aero kit for the 2015 season, which hampered them from just testing on their own and testing the car. And it just seems like ever since then, the excuses are easier to come by. Now, mind you, Rossi had some great successes in 2016, 17, 18, but since then, and Hurtis has some great seasons, but Hurt has been, really up and down. He's either leading every lap, dominating the race, or he's running at the back. He's never contended for the championship. So, yeah, something is amiss at Andretti, and nobody can seem to really put their finger on exactly what it is. So, but you know what? But a win for one of those Andretti guys at Long Beach would do wonders for the team morale.
Agreed.
All right. So, Chris, who you like for Long Beach? That being said, Alex Palou?
Honestly, I like Alex, but the other Alex, I actually like Rossi to try and get this win. He's been very frustrated over the last almost 3 years since his last win. His last win was at Road America in 2019, which was a royal butt kicking. He started second, led every lap except for I think one on a green flag pit stop sequence. But you're wondering, when's this bad luck going to end? And I really like him for Long Beach. He's got 2 very dominating wins there. It is, for lack of a better term, a home race for him. I like him for this weekend coming up.
Okay, and you know what? And those California fans would like nothing more than to see their California guy win that thing again. Yeah. So, Richard, who do you like?
Let's go Penske clean sweep of the first 3 and go with Willpower.
Okay, Willpower, good pick. Good pick. Louise?
I'm gonna safely say is if it's gonna how would I put it? The time, if you're gonna say the time has arrived for a driver to finally be a true legit title contender, this must be the race for Herta to really be a title contender. If he does not, scrap him off as the title contender. So it's 2-way street. Herta wins, he'll be in the mix. If he's not, then I am gonna have real doubts of him being a title contender again.
Yeah, sung for the year. Yeah. So I'm going to go with Newgarden based on his pole last year and his momentum and the fact that the Penske team has momentum. And I think Newgarden's going to be tough to. I think the leaner 3-car Penske team really suits what they're doing. And I think maybe the 4 cars was part of their struggles the last couple of years, because we've seen consistently that, while teams like Andretti have performed really well with 4 cars, they're probably the only one. Ganassi did really well with 4 cars last year, minus Jimmy Johnson, so they had 3 out of 4. But Penske, whatever because they've gone 3 cars, 4 cars, 3 cars, 4 cars, back and forth. And it always seems like when they go to that, they get that 4th car, they just don't have the same success as when they lean it down. And I think that Penske is going to be tough to beat all year long. So I'm going to go with Newgarden there. So speaking of Penske, the guy who owns the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, we are, it's April now. So we're, we're under a month from the month of May. And there's only 32 confirmed entries for the 500. If you recall, the last couple of years, we've had as many as 36, 35, 36 going for that. But it really looks like, and so there'll be 33 before we get to race day. But it would be nice to see, an actual bump and see more than 33, but it's really, if we start to kind of look at it, it's a little bit of a tougher deal this year because nobody kind of wants to branch out and say, yeah, we'll go ahead and run another car. Because in the past, Foyt's ran another car and Coyne's run another car, but nobody seems to be really willing to do that. Even Penske has been pretty firm on his 3 cars. Ganassi's already got 4. Andretti's kind of set at 5 because they're adding Marco to the mix.
You've got to do it to make money, though, haven't you? You're not going to do it for free.
Yeah. So evidently, there's no shortage of engine leases, okay? Because there's theoretically 36 available engine leases. There are DW12 chassis out there to be had or purchased. Because you got guys like Dragon Speed sitting on one. You've got, Buddy the Zier's got an older one hanging around that can be updated. But I want to talk about the Top Gun, right? And this is a team, and this is what I find so interesting is that just last fall, we had both the Throckmortons, Stephanie and Bill, who own Top Gun Racing, on the show here. They had nothing but praise for RC Enerson, right? And then a few weeks later, we had RC Enerson on the show, and he had nothing but praise for the Throckmortons, and they had planned on continuing together. Something has gone wrong there in that relationship, and I don't know what it is. But there's a dispute over who actually owns those cars. Now, Neil Enerson, who is RC's dad, and Neil is also the owner of the Lucas Oil Racing School, put a bunch of his money up to buy those cars. They have one car that's put together in road course trim and one car that's more or less disassembled. So Neil put up a bunch of money to get these cars, only for them to get bumped last year at Indy, but they were able to run at the Grand Prix, only to finish last place after a mechanical. And even then, even after that, they were still all, kind of, all together, lovey-dovey, and all in it together. But something has soured the relationship. RC had, put out more or less of a cryptic statement that he would be, continuing to see what he could do this year, but it would not be with Top Gun. Top Gun has been very quiet, other than that they intend to run a car and they are in negotiations now. I'll tell you my one of my side projects here. We have actually invested nearly $6,000 in sponsoring Top Gun, and we're about to ask for our money back. but that the Stephanie Throckmorton insists that they are in negotiations. They're not ready to give up yet, but the dispute of who owns the car, right? And Marshall Pruitt published an article saying that I guess they said unless they exercise a clause for 7 figures, which is over $1 million, to buy the cars from the Enersons, that they won't have a car. So, I mean, that right there kind of indicates that the Enersons own the car. And as far as the Enersons are concerned, I hear some little rumblings that what they want to do is run one of those cars in a couple of road courses later this year, not do the expense that it takes to do Indy, and run RC at a couple of road courses on their own, as Enerson Racing. So, I mean, Chris, I can't see anything other than no Top Gun entry in the field. Have you heard anything different?
Sorry there, I had to unmute myself. I haven't heard anything different. I really just hate it because RC's always been a good person to talk to. He's always been willing to, talk openly about, what's going on with him. And quite frankly, he's had a very weird career in open wheel. He did USF 2000 a couple of years on the road to Indy. Then he went directly to Indy Lights and actually skipped what is now Indy Pro 2000. And then just doing hodgepodge part-time, rides here and there. It's just, he needs stability, and it's just something that's been very hard to come by for him. I haven't heard anything different about, him doing the 500 or him doing any other races, but it's frustrating.
He's pretty much said that you won't see him at the 500. So,
all right.
But they're, and if he is, it won't be with Top Gun for sure.
Which is frustrating because they seem to work really well together last year, but I don't know what's going on there. I mean, not making the 500 honestly is frustrating, but we also have to look at the realistic, parts of the situation here. I mean, they didn't get their car until April 1st last year, so they were already behind the 8 ball. And to get as close as they did, I think is actually an achievement. It's a credit to their effort that they were able to get that close with that little preparation time, when full well that there are teams that are building their Indy 500 cars starting in September, October the previous year, and doing all the, the body fit and all the fine tuning to make it work right.
Yeah, it is. It is kind of, I really wonder what soured the relationship, but as well as I do, what sours most relationship is disagreements over money. And I'm sure that there's something in there, because I know Neil sunk a lot of his money in there. I know Bill and Stephanie sunk a lot of their own money in there. I know Bill and Stephanie have raised money, that they've had a couple of minor sponsors that have come on board. But yeah, I don't think it's anything to the point where they're going to be able to put a car on the track. Now, who can put a car on the track? Okay, so you've got Stephen Wilson and his investors still out there, but they lack a team, a crew, a shop, a car, right? All they have is a driver and some money. Will Mariotti, the faster pastor, I know Will relatively, reasonably well. He's a good dude. He says he's got a driver lined up. I have no idea who it is, and he says he got some money, but I'll just go on record as saying that the money he has isn't enough, and the driver that he has doesn't have much more. Then of course, the next one is Beth Peretta, who they went in last year with Simona Di Silvestro in the car, with some, with an assist from Roger Penske and Team Penske. But what I'm hearing from them is they're also looking at maybe just doing a couple of races later in the year and skipping the expense of Indy, because again, there's a gap in funding. So where does this 33rd car come from? Obviously, at the end of the day, Roger can wheel out his spare and hire a guy to throw in there, since he owns a series. But they're pretty adamant that they're not going to do that. But if push comes to shove, and we're going to be short an entry for the 500, Chris, do you think Roger will go ahead and jump that shark?
I don't think so. I think there will be a 33rd car, but I don't know where it would come from. I think Honda have said that they are maxed out on entries. It would have to be a Chevy entry, but I don't see where it's coming from, because I've got the list of drivers that have signed for different races. Ganassi's going to have 5 cars. Well, that's Honda, but still McLaren, they're going to have 3 cars like they did last year. Foyt's going to have 3 cars. They tried to do 4 last year, and Charlie Kimball didn't make it. Dry and Reinbold, they actually expanded to 2 cars. Carpenter's going back to 3. Juncos is back, but they are only running 1 car. And Penske's got 3. So, it's some teams are adding while others are subtracting, and you're ended up with 1 fewer car. But we also have to remember the chassis that Peretta ran last year was actually the car that Juncos owned. So why Juncos is in is because they're not leasing their car to anybody else, like it's their own car now.
Okay, so what happened to the chassis that Carlin owned? I mean, think about that, because Carlin had a couple of chassis, because they actually ran several races with 2 cars.
Yes, I think
so. Yeah,
I think Ricardo might have some of that. I would assume that he would. The problem is having the people to run those cars. Because Ricardo, as he's got a very successful Road to Indy program. He's got a very successful he had a successful karting program before he shut that down. He has a solid group of people that work for him, but what he doesn't have is enough people to do 2 cars like he did the first time he ran at Indy in 2017, when he had Spencer Pigot and Sebastian Saavedra. That's what it comes down to. He doesn't have the people. Then again, they're trying to build it slowly with Callum Ilott driving for them, and I think they're doing it the right way. I just wish they had more people.
Yeah, I think that's the resounding refrain, is that it's not a lack of engine leases or equipment; it's a lack of skilled people to crew the team, to engineer and whatnot. So yeah, it'll be a sad day if we only have 32 entries for the 500. I mean, it won't be the end of the world. And I'm sure that somebody, even if it is Roger, will step up and get that 33 car, that 33rd car in there. Because I think, the days of calling Buddy Lazier at the last minute and throwing him a couple of $100,000 has passed, because Buddy's probably pushing 60 now.
I don't even know if they had a car still.
I don't know. I don't know.
This is what, 2018 or 17 he last raced?
I think 17 was the last one he ran.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Wow. Yeah. So of course he's got a kid who's pretty skilled, Finn or Flynn. Is it Finn or Flynn?
Flynn, Flinn, I think.
Flynn, yeah. So we'll just have to see. We've got a couple more weeks until we open the speedway for practice. So we'll see who steps up there. Anyway, so Richard, we got about 5 minutes left, and Formula One is going down under to Australia. So let's preview Australia real quick. Do you think the Ferraris can maintain their pace?
Yeah, I don't think you're going to see any massive changes from the pecking order in the last couple of races. Yeah, some teams may bring some upgrades, and he's probably looking at Mercedes there to see how they can react to what they've learned from those first 2 flyaway races in Bahrain and Saudi Arabia. That'll probably be the big test. But you do expect to be relatively similar from what we've seen. But it'll be good to get back there. First time since 2019 we've been to Australia for Formula One. Obviously, that we were there in 2020, and everybody was getting ready to go racing, and then we all know what happened after that. So it's going to be good. There's some track changes there. Pretty much every corner on the track has had some work done on it and modifications. There's 4 DRS zones around the track now. I mean, pretty much make every
4 RS.
If you within a second, just let them open it. No matter where they are on the track, if they want to go through a high-speed corner with DRS, have at it, boys. So it'll be interesting to see how those track changes play out, if they're doing the racing any better. I think it will do in a couple of places. They've certainly increased the overall speed of the lap, taking out some of those high-speed chicanes and basically straight line them now. So I think that's going to be very, very entertaining. So looking forward to it, really am. I think it's the downside of that is it's like a 2 a.m. race, so on the East Coast here. So
that's the problem with
Louise on the West
races
Coast
in Australia. Yeah.
you guys who've been in Long Beach or on the West Coast,
I don't know if I'm
at 11 o'clock.
I don't know if I'll be able to be fully awake to watch it. Depends how. I still have to finalize how I'm going to go about Long Beach, because I may stay as late to shoot Formula D photos, Formula Drift.
Oh, there you go. Yeah,
we'll see. I've never done it because I always leave late in the day.
There were some great photos with the tires smoking away on those cars and the backs, the back end outsidewards. But it is the only downside of it from the North American market, especially with the the new announcement of the Vegas race. Really pushing for those races to sort of turn around and be like, well, this is 2 o'clock in the morning, so it is what it is. But I'm sure plenty of people will watch it live. I'll probably do that myself, as stupid as that sounds. But why break habit of a lifetime? And it'd be really looking forward to this race. It's Australia, Melbourne. It's just something about that circuit, the character to it. It's got for me, it's a nice, warm, fuzzy feeling about that circuit. I enjoy it.
And it's been too long since we've been there. You know what I mean? So
it has been, yes.
So Richard,
Melbourne.
who do you like for the win?
Who do we like for the win? You know what? I think Checo is going to get revenge for not revenge, that's the wrong word, but a reward for what happened in Saudi the other week. I think he's, for the first time, he really put it to Max in qualifying in Saudi Arabia. And I think that the potential, if he can do the same thing again, hopefully he won't have that safety car timing issue like he had the other week. And I think he deserves it. He certainly does deserve it. And with some of the words coming out from Helmut Marko regarding Pierre Gasly, saying that basically if they don't get Gasly into a Red Bull by the time his contract expires with the Red Bull family, but basically if they don't replace Checo with Gasly either in 2023 or sign a new contract for 2024 with him, they'll lose him to another team, which I think Gasly's done more than enough to prove that to be the case. So there is pressure on Checo there to perform and to play that number 2 role, but he also does have to, you do have a Constructors' Championship to bear in mind here, and you look at the Ferrari partnership, that's a very, very strong driver lineup. And you look at the Mercedes driver lineup, again, a very, very strong lineup. So you probably look at those the big three teams, and you'd probably put at the moment Checo as the weak link in there. Although he has won a race and Carlos Sainz hasn't, you just think that there's maybe something a little bit more about Carlos Sainz when it comes to his proximity to Charles Leclerc in that car.
Okay, that was a rather long answer.
So
you're going with Checo.
Checo.
All right. So Christopher, who do you like? Who do you like for Australia?
Leclerc. He's really adjusted well to the new cars, and I think he's going to be doing well in Australia.
All right, that's a very good pick. Charles Leclerc is matter of fact, Lewis Hamilton is a little worried that if Charles Leclerc dominates all the races, Formula One will become boring. Which coming from Lewis Hamilton, I found that to be hilarious. All right, Louise.
Oh, since Charles is out of the picture, I'm gonna go with Max.
Okay, so that leaves me, Carlos Sainz. I'll go ahead and take Carlos and say that he's the next first Grand Prix winner. So, and to your point about Pierre Gasly, I really hope he is able to step back up again. I've very publicly been on record telling you I really like this guy. I like his style.
Yep.
I wish him well. So, but we are out of time. So I want to thank Dan Blay Racing Art for sponsoring us. Dan Blay, he'll make you a custom die-cast of an IndyCar, or his son Michael will. Both are equally skilled. You can find them on Facebook. Just look up Dan Blay Racing Art. Also, the Legend of the First Super Speedway, a fine book by Mark Dill. You can find a link to buy his book on his website, firstsuperspeedway.com. And while you're on that website, there is a treasure trove of information about Prix 1920 racing with stats and articles. And it's just, if you love racing history, hop on there and have a look at it. But I want to thank you, Richard, Christopher, Louise. I want to thank the Hoobazoo Radio Network. I want to thank Spreaker, iHeartRadio, YouTube, and Google Podcasts. But most of all, I want to thank you folks for taking time to listen to us every week. But until next week, good night.
WHOOBAZOO, that's Hoobazoo.com.
Enter website.